All right, investment versus expense. When it comes to the goods that we purchase, the services that we acquire, we want to know money that's going out. What column does that fall in? And today's focus is home. All right, grab your favorite mug. It's time for Coffee with Your Retirement Coach. Welcome back to Coffee with Your Retirement Coach. Today's episode, investment versus expense, home edition. Behind the clipboard, Randy Yeomans. Randy.
How you doing, Aaron?
I'm just excited to be back. Wasn't here at one of the previous episods.
You were missed, man.
Well, I'm glad you said that because we got some decent feedback. I was like, whoa, it's not addition by subtraction.
It really sucks if the ratings and all that don't go down when you're not on the show.
You want to see a dip. You want to be like, hey, we missed you. Anyway, but speaking of fantastic additions, sitting with us today, Greater Atlanta Realtor, Kad Mendoza. Kad, thanks for being here. Your professional vantage point on this topic, I think, is going to be extremely helpful.
Yeah, appreciate you guys inviting me to this. This is pretty exciting.
Oh, man, it's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Okay, one of the things that comes up a lot of times when we're working with clients who are going through different kinds of transitions, moving, deciding whether they should move, right sizing, downsizing, and we start talking about a home purchase. And the question is is a home an investment or is it an expense?
Right.
And in my opinion, a home is always an expense, but it can be an investment. So tell us a little bit about the market today, Kad.
Yeah, so right now for folks that are out there looking to sell a home, it's a little different now than it was a few years back, right?
Sure.
Like now, through COVID, you could put your little shack out on the market and it would sell like within an hour.
Right.
So that's not happening anymore. So things are taking a little longer.
And recency is difficult because some people have only to compare what they've seen happening, and they forget a time period where 4 to 6 weeks was very normal.
Yeah.
No reason to worry.
Yeah. Yeah. Now folks are like stressing out after 40 days on the market.
Right.
My house is going to sell, but that's just the norm now.
Yeah, I would say, and it's been the norm before. I think one of the things that we talk about, whether it's a stock market, real estate market, or other things, is there's a season. One of the things we often talk about is, our life is more like farming than it is a microwave. You got to realize what season you're in. So some of that, I think, is really important to understand. Where are we in this market? And a part of that is it's always changing. It doesn't stay the same. And one of the challenges is the psychology of buying and selling, especially a home, because a home can be a real emotional attachment. So we want to talk today about, making smart decisions about buying real estate and selling real estate. So let's kind of go down that path a little bit. And so, Kad, what are some of the things that you see that people do that are, when they're going to sell a home, that are some of the mistakes you see them do?
Yeah, great question. I'll tell you that the number one mistake that I see is folks are not ready for the parade.
Wow.
Do you know what the parade is?
I think I do. Is that the real estate parade, the realtor parade?
Well, if you think about the parade, like an actual parade, you have all these all that time that goes into getting ready.
Are there going to be
parade.
floats?
There's going to be floats at the parade, yes, but not the real estate parade.
All right.
But you're getting ready for this big event,
okay.
And then all of a sudden you have all these people gathered together, and you have these big floats and clowns, and you have all these kinds of folks there. And then for the real estate parade, what I mean is that first week is so crucial that if you're not ready for that, that's when you have your most showings.
Oh.
So typically when you go list your home, that first week, you probably have somewhere between 10 to 20 showings typically in this market now.
Yeah.
Okay.
After that, you might see 2 or 3 during every week from there forward. So it's so important to make sure that you're ready for that big parade.
Okay. So what you're saying is when you launch, and in fairness, I've done 5 different real estate deals with Kad, buying and selling real estate. So you've been really a big help to me. And I'm super cynical. I question everything.
Sure.
I've made Kad really earn his keep, right, Kad?
Yeah.
But it is tough.
I should have got paid double. So.
Yeah. But you had to help us shift from, hey, we think this is a great place, but it's the perception of the buyer. Like, I got to take all the pictures of me down. Kad, I could be a value add to this place. So do you want to talk about kind of what that mental preparedness from every aspect looks like?
As far as selling goes,
correct. The parade.
Yeah, let's start about listing a home, like getting ready. Yeah. What do people need to do?
Yeah, number one thing is declutter. And just remember, folks, like this is not your house anymore. You're getting ready to put it on the market and you need to move. So the number one thing I see, one of the biggest mistakes I see is that folks are leaving pictures up on the wall. Their closets are cluttered with things. Their basements are cluttered. Their garages are cluttered. And then when I show a buyer a home like that, I already know that this seller is not serious. Like they're not serious to negotiate a deal. So right off the bat, I know this is not going to be a
so
good.
they're setting themselves up for failure. And
Correct.
especially in that first week, as what you're saying, when everything hits the market and then their home doesn't stand out, it's cluttered, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And so some people just don't listen to you, right?
Yeah, that's just, you try to advise folks and sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. And a big mistake that they make is and I'll give you a good example of this. I had a client who was selling a condo, and I'll just call him Dave.
Bob? Okay.
Bob.
Bobby David.
Bobby David.
Bobby David.
Bobby David didn't do the things I suggested doing before reselling the house.
Okay.
For example, painting the interior, which is not that expensive in a condo.
Okay.
Replacing a very old oven, a very old refrigerator.
Okay.
He listed the home, and we had about 15 showings.
Okay.
The first 2 weeks. This is not too long ago. So in this market, having 15 showings is actually really good.
Nice.
And it's just sitting there. Now, after a month or so, he's realizing, okay, maybe I should listen to Kad. Here's the issue now. Remember that parade I was talking to you about? Mm-hmm. That parade is here and
happened.
gone.
It's gone. Already missed the parade. Okay.
So now you're waiting for new buyers to hit the market. Or if you reduce a price down, now you have some new eyes.
Or what's wrong with the property?
Exactly. Now everybody's okay. Now the house has been on the market for a month now. What's wrong with the property?
Well, that's a good point. So it's a reduced price, and then they're going to see the new oven and the fresh paint, and it's not going to make sense to them.
It's not going to make sense.
But I love that you said that, Kad, because and again, this is why you do what you do, and we come to you. But my thought would have been, okay, we need to clear the space up so I can see myself in it. Never would have thought about the perception of the motivation of the seller. But what a huge aspect when you're working through all these things.
Yeah, no, it's a big deal. And my goal always is to make sure that we're getting the most money out of that listing for you, the seller.
Right.
And in order to do that, you have to present the house in the right manner.
So let me go into that a little bit. So what I've noticed over the years, first of all, your residence becomes kind of like your baby. So you potentially see your home worth more than it's worth. And sometimes when we talked about this season, somebody can remember 6 months ago when property was going really quick, so they think the price, they should be able to go up on the price versus their neighbor, and their house is better because it's 200 square feet more, and their backyard's prettier, and they have a pink fence or something. Something makes it in their mind better than the other house that sold for thus and such. So there's a psychology element of that. So let's get down to what really works. So I've had over many years working with clients, them wanting to do things like they're going to tear out their kitchen, they're going to replace cabinets, they're going to take the carpet out, they're going to paint the house, they're going to redo the master, all in preparation for selling the home. And it's kind of interesting too, because when I think about this, a home should be a nest. So if you're going to make that kind of investment in your home and you're thinking about making that investment, first of all, why not enjoy it? If you're going to do that, let's work with a financial plan in order to go ahead and get the home the way you would want it in the first place. I would say I've had a dozen people tell me, they almost don't want to sell it because they've done these things and now they really like it, that kind of thing. So on the one hand, if some of that stuff needs to be done and you're doing it for personal enjoyment, do that in advance of wanting to sell the home. What I'm concerned about, and I don't fully understand because I'm not a realtor, is what is an investment in the home versus an expense. So if I go and do certain things, I'm putting money in the home, would that raise the value of the home for me to get my money back? So what are the things that might be good to do, and what are things that people are doing thinking they're adding value to the home, and really they might not even get a return of the extra capital they put in the home? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think a lot of mistakes folks make is that I'm going to put renovate the whole kitchen and spend 30 grand on there. You're not going to get 30 grand back from that renovation. So the way I approach it is, especially when we're getting ready to list a home, is the first thing I do is pull the comps. So if you're looking at all the comps and like saying, hey, like this house is very comparable to yours, it has completely updated kitchen, and it's listed at 450. We'll say
Right.
450. You're right now, if you put 30 grand into that kitchen, is that will you be able to list it for 450 or?
Or 480 or
480?
Yeah.
Sure.
So, I'm just going to give Kad some kudos. So I actually interviewed somebody he sold a home for not long ago. And I said, give me some feedback on working with Kad. And by the way, we have a lot of clients that are realtors, and they're great people. And we are not steering somebody to any individual realtor. This is the value of a realtor. But personally, I've done 5 deals with Kad.
Yeah.
So I asked this person, I said, what did you value? And some of the things that were said was this element where he did an amazing amount of research, and whether other realtors do that or not, I assume some of them do and some of them don't. He brought like a small book and went over the difference in the comps, the different things. So you really kind of had an idea of what the value of the property was from somebody who is just taking a look at it from a statistical standpoint. What's the probability of getting this prices versus the other? And some properties, I'm sure it's easier to do that, and some it's not so easy. And you did a little Google search on Kad, and what were some of the comments you got?
We like you. We're big fans, but also we're trying to make sure that we're being prudent and doing our due diligence. So I kind of did a deep dive through your recommendations online.
Oh, okay. Just go over the good ones.
Well, listen, as I'm going through, I'm hearing the same things over and over. You had a client in Smyrna that said, I've used Kad on both sides of the table as a buyer and a seller. And thrilled with, sometimes in your industry, somebody will lean more one side. They're very obvious that's either their passion or they're excited about it, but they want to have that ambidextrousness. Again, but as I was going through all these, it's talking about how patient you were, how important it was. We talk all the time about the 5th habit.
Yeah, could you hurry up?
Yeah. But again, through this, and again, not to belabor anything, but as people were talking about, you taking the time to find out what they wanted or what was important to get out of their homes. I'm like, man, I typically would have come into a conversation thinking that a realtor is an expense, and that's okay because it's a necessary expense. But it's also an investment, and there's even professional people that have done Google reviews and things on you. I'm like, man, if people in the mortgage industry are talking about Kad and took the time to go write a review, good grief.
I think that's a good point, because I think if you are looking for a realtor, one of the things you should do is do a little bit of a deep dive. In my experience in talking with clients who've worked with different realtors, some of them have realtors like we feel about Kad, and they're just, they're not going to list or they're not going to buy with anybody other than that one person. Yeah. And that's a great thing to see. But I feel like, kind of like financial planning done effectively can really increase the outcome of your investments, help you protect and grow and leave your assets in a successful way. I hope, the same experience that people would have with a realtor. And so part of it is listening to the advice that's being given. And so what I'm hearing you say, Kad, is that if you want to sell your home, you got to declutter it. And then you got to price it right. And if you're working with a realtor, they ought to be able to bring the numbers to you so you make a logical decision about that.
Yeah,
right?
and not to interrupt, but some folks, when they want to sell their home, like buy owner, for example, that's the biggest mistake they make is, and I do this too in my house. I think my house is worth more than what the market is. I think everybody feels the same way. Yeah. So if anybody goes down that road where they want to list their house, on their own, I highly suggest get somebody else that's not related to you, that's, outside of the house, get their opinion too, and say, hey, these are the comps, my house. What do you think it's worth?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's so good. Randy, you said deep dive, and it made me think. We talked about a kitchen, but could you talk about some of the other things like swimming pools, roofs, driveways, that kind of stuff? We had a client not too long ago. They were like, we're going to sell the house. We're working on it. It's funny. They were downsizing, but it was a much more expensive home, which I'm sure you see a lot of. Yeah. But one of the things we're going to go ahead and fill in the pool. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
I've actually had that happen too. Yeah.
Yeah. What are your recommendations when it comes to, well, we have a pool, or we're going to get a pool. Should we fill the pool in? And then conversations about the driveway's cracked, the roof maybe not so great.
Yeah,
Some
how
of
do you
those
know?
things.
Right. How do you know what is worth putting the money in and what isn't?
The easiest way to answer that is going to be just pulling what other houses have sold in the neighborhood. Once you have that information, then you can figure out, okay, this one has a pool, that one doesn't have a pool, this one has an updated kitchen, that one has an updated, backyard kind of thing.
Right.
All this
so then you've got to kind of do a cost analysis, right? If I did these things, would it actually add value? Yeah, you might get more for your home, but not more money in your pocket, right? Because all you're doing is getting a return back on extra capital you put in.
Right.
What are the times in which what are the things that people can do if they did invest the money in the home that would actually potentially make the home more sellable or more valuable?
Yeah. This is funny. Every year I get at least 3 or 4 clients that call me up and say, hey, Kad, I'm looking to renovate my kitchen or redo my flooring. What do you think about this?
Oh, wow. So a forward-thinking attitude. We're going to enjoy it, but
but in the future, if I'm going to sell it, I'm going to call Kad and make sure I'm doing this right kind of thing, because he knows the market. And I've had those conversations, be like, yeah, no, the color you're picking, that's not going to work.
Pink and yellow isn't always great.
Yeah.
Or purple.
Yeah.
Man, that's wild.
All right. So, let's go to the other end. What if I'm buying a home? What are some of the challenges and mistakes people make in buying a home?
Yeah. Buying a home, I would say, and I was a buyer's agent for a very, very long time. The number one mistake they make is they do not pick their lender ahead of time.
Ooh, that's interesting.
That's huge, because what happens is it makes the whole process so stressful. And it's funny because we're having this conversation. I have this conversation with all my new clients that are buyers, and most of them listen, but some of them don't. And then when you go, hey, Kad, the house, we have this great house. We want to go look at it today. And they fall in love with it. All of a sudden now
they're rushing to try to get some. Yeah,
it just moves so fast once you're under contract. So now you're dealing with a contract, but also now you're dealing with, I still need to find a lender. Which lender am I going to pick? Yeah. So I always tell folks, please, 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 always try to figure out what lender you want to use first. Apply with whoever you want to apply with. That's fine. And then from there, once you make that decision, let's go hunting.
It's interesting that you say that. I think one of the things that teaming up the real estate side of things with the financial planner who is forward thinking as well is really understanding the options you have. So I often will recommend people who are in that situation to go ahead and get a home equity line of credit on their personal residence. And so, well, we don't need to borrow any money. No, it's not for you to borrow money, but I'll often have them get the largest home equity line that they can. And one of the reasons for that is so that they will have the down payment, or they'll have the assets to put down in a home should something come up that is like a really great deal. This is not to, be buying stuff that you don't need. This is having access to the equity inside your home. The other thing that we've done for a number of clients is asset-based lending. So this is where somebody can already have it set up with their investment company, like what we do, and they can actually borrow on their investments, so that if they needed to do a deal and they're not waiting on a mortgage, if something came up like really quickly and they weren't properly prepared, between the home equity line of credit on the residence and a line of credit on their investments, they've got ready cash that they're already approved on, and they can make a purchase on the home. And in some cases, when people are going through certain transitions, they might need a little time to sell the home, or they might have a deal that, like, the opportunity is so great, and not emotionally, but really logically, it's such a great deal. So having smart financial planning as a part of your real estate view is good. So again, sometimes having a line of credit, I'll even, and have had times, if interest rates are appropriate, I've had people pay off their mortgage with a line of credit, because as they're paying that down, they can repopulate the line of credit, or the home equity line of credit. And the same with asset-based lending. They can use that, pay it off, and it's constantly available to them. So that's another way, not as conventional, but in certain circumstances that might work. But the number one thing is if you're going to be buying, have that financial element handled. Best thing, get the right lender if you're going to need a mortgage. if you're not going to need a mortgage and you're going to use the cash from the proceeds of the home, maybe have some asset-based lending or a big line of credit on your home. Does that make sense to you?
Oh yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah,
So-
and be prepared that way is crucial, because I find folks, especially when you're having to buy and sell at the same time,
Yeah.
that can get pretty difficult. And not many folks are doing the contingency contracts nowadays,
Right.
because if it's taking 30 or 40
Right.
days to get a house under contract, that contingency is not going to work.
And I've actually had a client recently within the last few weeks call me and ask me would they do that. And then one of them, they're going to pay, it was almost a cash deal, but the remaining amount, they wanted the seller to hold a mortgage on it and, do like a balloon note on it. So those are kind of interesting conversations. What's another one in buying a home that is a mistake that people make?
I'm trying to think of another one. Obviously not having the right real estate agent is a big one. And what I mean by that is not having somebody that knows the contracts. So let me give you a good example of that. Okay. So I recently had a client who, day of closing, decided, hey, Kad, and I know I'm not going to go into all the details of it, but we don't want the home anymore. So legally, they backed out. So if you don't know the contracts, you don't know the buyer's rights to back out of a deal like that. What does that do? Now, is that going to lead me up to a lawsuit as a buyer? Sure. I mean, but anybody can sue anybody for any reason, right?
Right.
But here's the thing. So I know the contracts pretty well. I've done this for a long time. Back in 2018, the GAR, they're called the GAR contracts, the Georgia Real Estate Contracts. They made a change on there to where now a buyer or a seller cannot sue a buyer for specific performance. Before that, you could do it all day long. But so if you don't know the contracts, you wouldn't know that.
It's a big deal. I thought you were about to say they went out and bought a car the week before.
Yeah, no,
did something to mess up the financing, but that's...
Well, yeah, that probably would not be a great idea either.
No.
Doing some major transaction or something like
Yeah,
that. So there is some misconceptions of what people should and shouldn't do there
Right.
in that period of time. Is there anything else? Like, I think one of the things we've talked about over the years, because Kad and I have got to know each other pretty well, is where people can't pull the trigger. Like they don't find that perfect property. And I think sometimes people can't see through the paint color or the fact that they could take a wall down or, they could redo the landscaping. So how does that work? Like what's your experience with that?
Yeah. I mean, just when I'm showing a house, you have to walk through, hey, did you notice this? This could be changed to that. And a lot of times what I'm seeing is a lot of times folks don't pull the trigger, and it's because the walls are all dark and you can't really see in the house. They don't have natural daylight going in or whatever. I'm like, listen, guys, let's open up the blinds and picture this with a brighter color.
Right.
And this is going to look so much different.
There's some software out there. Do people ever do that now where they take the home and then they do the change of color? I'm just curious.
No, they do. But here's the issue, though. I think a lot of times, especially when I'm showing a house, it's hard to change folks' minds.
What is that first impression?
Yeah, that first impression, they're pretty much like, okay, this is not it. In their mind, they moved on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's hard to like, hey, let me get this app out real quick. And
So I think one of the things, I remember when we were looking for a property up in North Georgia and we were using Kad, and he drug us all over all these mountains and that. And of course, this was shortly after COVID, at the end of kind of the norm where everything was shut down. And a lot of people were looking at buying property. And I don't know, that was kind of a weird time. But man, I mean, there were shacks people were asking ridiculous prices. And if you didn't buy the shack was gone the next day.
Right, absolutely.
So, this is those seasons of time. Yeah. So I think really some of the things as a financial planner who primarily works in the retirement community, and that is conversations I'm having with clients. And that is the idea of, are you in a home that if you had an illness or your spouse had an illness and a mobility struggle, are you in the right home? Because people do fall in love with their home. But if all your bedrooms are upstairs, or you've got a very difficult navigation of stairs or landscaping or where the garage is and all this kind of stuff, you may love it and never want to move. And moving is a pain in the butt. Let's just admit it. Nobody wants to do it. It's not fun. But what I've found is figuring out what's the right thing to do. So sometimes, and Kad and I have even worked on a couple of these situations where it makes sense to sell the home, and maybe you're going to go into living in an adult apartment living, or you're going to live in an adult community where you are, going to be able to get transportation to different things. And they've got massive amounts of activities. And we'll do this another time maybe, but we won't name names. But there are some unbelievable facilities who are all going after these baby boomer market where they are wanting to get out of that real estate responsibility. Yeah. And now we've got the proceeds from a home that can help support that lifestyle. So you don't actually have to sell a home and buy a home. You might want to sell a home, and you might want to go into some form of adult living. And the reason I'm spending some time on that is, as a financial planner and trying to make smart decisions about our money, smart decisions in buying a home, smart decisions in selling a home, one of the things we have to look at is, what are the next 10 or 20 years of my life looking like? And what if you don't make some of these decisions and thoughtfully consider what your real circumstances are, real diagnostic dive into where are you and what you would really want. And you end up in a circumstance where you're in a residence that doesn't fit you if you have an illness, then somebody else is going to be making that decision, or whatever's available. So it's much better to be thinking about your home as a nest and getting the value out of that and being in the right home for the stage of life you are. Yeah. People upgrade to a home in their late 40s. They typically buy their biggest home in their 40s in that period of time. And then when people start downsizing, they really need some guidance. And one of the struggles I think a lot of us have had is we're selling this home, and it might even be a McMansion, and we're downsizing, we're spending the same money.
Yeah,
because that's the market demand, right? Yeah. What do people want? Low maintenance, freedom to do the stuff that they want to do. And, actually Kad helped me do that in 2016, I think it was. Yeah. And I downsized from a much bigger home and with a lot of property and landscaping issues and all that. And I tell you, honestly, Kad, I had buyer's remorse for about 3 months. Met my neighbors, fantastic neighbors, and also the things that the community had to offer were so much better than where I was before. But it took me a little bit of time to get to do that. So let's go back and do a little quick recap, mistakes that people make, and how. So first of all, a home can be an investment, but part of it is always an expense. Even if your home's paid for, and that's another episode maybe, do I pay my home off or not? But the property taxes, the insurance, the upkeep and the maintenance, that has to be taken into consideration. Home's always an expense.
But I wanted to tap into that. And I love all of this because I feel like it's the truth about any professional you work with. A lot of times we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
Randy, I was thinking back, we had a client not too long ago that they were making that move. They were empty nesters, and it was a little bit of a downsizing, but more they were kind of moving areas and stuff. And Randy just offhandedly said, I was for sure over Marietta, y'all would go move off the golf course. And they're like, oh no, we're worried about mobility later in life, the knees and everything, because they had a replacement knee surgery. And Randy goes, oh, okay, I was for sure that the elevator would have got you guys. And they were like, elevators? So yeah, those houses over there, they've got elevators. But if you don't want that, they're like, we didn't know they had elevators. And then they went over there, and I think they ended up doing like a short-term lease to find out if elevator living on the golf course was for them. But if you don't know what you don't know, and you don't have somebody to bounce off and sound with, so that's the question I'm leading into. You mentioned people will call you and say, and I know this is true because I did it. The wife's renovating the kitchen. I want her to be happy. Our kids are growing up. We're doing these things, you and I have the relationship professionally where I can do that.
Yeah.
What is the appropriate way to enter into a conversation with a professional, respecting of their time, respecting of their knowledge? How do you broach that conversation? How do you appropriately thank someone? Because, the old plumber's joke, you fixed it by banging on the pipe. I got a bill and it's this much to bang on the pipe. It's like, no. The bill is for how much it took me in the way of knowledge and years and expertise to know where to bang on the pipe. Yeah. How is an interaction like that appropriate if they're not buying or selling in that moment?
Yeah. Well, I guess it just depends on the agent you're talking to, right? For me, I always look for, and I love the opportunity to talk to anybody about real estate. That's just the way I am. Buying now, or buying 10, 20 years down the road doesn't matter to me. I just love the conversation.
Nice.
So if somebody just calls me up and say, hey, Kad, I'm looking to do this and I don't even know them. How'd you hear about me? Oh, Yeomans. I'm like, okay, well, let's talk. You know, and I'll give him some input on what to do.
So it's connection, it's networking. That is not a bother. You don't mind.
No, not at all.
Just be respectful.
Yeah, 100%. No, I enjoy those conversations. Nice. Bring it on.
Nice, nice. Sorry, Randy. I
mean, it's a good thing. It's kind of like some of what we do sharing in the public. I feel like there are people who take advice from financial planners. They go do it themselves. I have no problem with that.
Sure.
We're talking with Kad, but there's a lot of great realtors out there. You know, maybe not as good looking as Kad, but there's a lot of great ones. What we want to get from Kad, we're kind of doing what you're asking. We're actually borrowing from Kad, and we're saying, what are the things that people need to do? And this would be true probably of any realtor. And Kad will probably think of 5 more things in any area after we're done with that. And so would another realtor. But the point would be, what do we need to do in preparing? You know, first of all, I'm suggesting, think about the real estate that you're in. Is it ideal? Another one, which I won't go down this rabbit hole too far, but some people, they don't realize what their home's worth. Yeah. They don't realize that they have a home that's worth a lot of money, but it's 30 years old.
Sure.
And it's going to have all these things that are going to come up with it. It's probably not as energy efficient. It's probably got a lot of things, but they're familiar with it.
Yeah.
So whenever we go to make a change, whether it's real estate or something like that, there's what I call FUD, right? Fear, uncertainty, and distress. So it doesn't feel good to do it. But the point I'm making is, be in the right nest. If it's going to be an expense, be spending the money and the right property. And if you think before you sell your home somewhere down the road, you're going to update the kitchen and update that, work with your financial planner and enjoy it now. Don't wait, and fix your home up. And then when you go to sell, man, now I really like it. Go ahead and really like it now. Make that investment. And then figure out what's the right access to capital that's efficient and effective, like home equity line of credit, having that available to do things, having a line of credit on your assets or asset-based lending. We could talk more about that one day. But now let's go into a summary real quick of, all right, I'm going to sell a home, declutter that home, right?
Get rid
of all the stuff that you like that nobody else wants to see.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What else?
If anybody remembers anything about this podcast and what I'm suggesting, it's going to be get ready for the parade.
Get ready for the
such
parade.
A big deal.
Get ready for
I like that a lot.
It's such a big deal.
So really, that first week or two is the deal.
It's crucial.
That is the deal.
It is very crucial because if after that, one of 2 things happen. If you're not getting showings after that, one of 2 things, either one, pricing or condition. One of those 2 things. The problem with condition is it takes a while to fix.
Yeah.
So it's not quick.
Yeah.
So then, now you have to reduce pricing.
Somebody I referred you to, I remember when you went through that, I keep thinking we're going to put a sign out for this person. And man, you had them do a lot of stuff before you had them do that. Because I didn't know that you called it the parade, but you explained, I remember listening in and you said that first week or 2 is the deal. That's why pricing is important and why decluttering is important. And this particular person, man, they got rid of everything. I mean, they ended up with 3 storage units. Yeah. But they did what he said. I mean, they got rid of everything, and the house was pristine when it went on the market, and they got top dollar for it as a result of it. Yeah. So the other thing is, I think, no matter who the realtor is, listen to them. You're paying for advice for crying out loud. Right. Take their advice. Yeah. Don't think you know more than they do. Yeah. And realize that real estate is an emotional thing if it's your residence, okay? Selling a home, the number one thing I heard you say is get the lending or the financing handled in advance.
Buying the home, yes.
For buying the home, right? What did I say, selling?
Selling.
Yeah. Aaron made me do that.
In choosing between offers, has financing ever been the final, what you choose to go under contract with?
Yes. So as a seller, you're talking about the seller side and picking an offer.
Yes.
If you have 2 identical offers, there's so much to look into to making sure that my seller is protected. Yeah. And that financing contingency has it all right there.
I thought I was reading between the lines when you said that.
Yeah, what lender you're picking is a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay. So if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, here's an offer. I have another offer here for your house," and I'm looking at big bank versus a local lender, I'm going to go with that local lender 100% of the time.
Wow, that's interesting.
Because I promise, I could tell you all kinds of stories about big banks and how
we don't want to go to jail.
No, we don't want to go to jail. We don't want to go to jail.
Well,
but
if it's the local, it's probably already somebody that's familiar with the area and stuff too. Correct?
Exactly, familiar with the area, knows the local appraisers very well, and can get things done pretty quickly.
Awesome.
I don't want to rabbit trail off too much, but in light of that, we've got a mutual client, a financial planning client of ours that you've helped. They went to Central Florida. I want to be careful because it's a small world. They went to Central Florida because that was the area they wanted to be, close to the beach. They had a lot of reasons for going, and it lasted less than 2 years. And then they're back here.
Yeah.
So when somebody is thinking about if it's hey, it's not just the home, we're thinking about moving to a new community or to a destination. What kind of wisdom do you try to impart or help somebody to mentally prepare for that kind of a transition?
So when they're moving like out of state kind of thing?
Out of state, or even we have a lot of people that, man, we grew up in this area and we stayed because our kids' friends were here and the ball team was here. And now we want to go to Alpharetta, or now we want to move up to Flowery Branch or to a vacation location.
Yeah. So it's funny because I get at least 1 or 2 phone calls every year from a client saying, hey, I have a friend of mine that's moving out of state, or a friend of mine moving in state, and who do we call? If I'm not the local agent here, whatever, they're moving up to like South Georgia or something like that.
That'd be down to South Georgia.
You're both wrong. It would be south to South Georgia. It's not up or down.
Oh my goodness!
All right, hit me with it.
But I have those conversations with folks where I'm networked around the country.
Sure.
So I can make those phone calls saying, hey, I did this recently over in North Carolina. I had a client moving to North Carolina. And because of my networking, I was able to get a list of really good agents, interview them, and narrow it down for them. And then from there, here you go. Here's the top 3 that I could find. You interview and you get.
That's awesome.
And the feedback I get every time is excellent.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, and wrapping up, and we really are running out of time now. I just want to say, Kad, I appreciate you. Again, we've got a lot of real estate clients who are great folks, and that you took the time to do this. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring you in is the number of deals I've done with Kad, and I know what that is. And I think that one of the struggles I've had in dealing with Kad is taking his advice, because I think I know everything. And Kad has been able to prove to me, that I don't know everything.
Yeah.
He's not the only one that's proved that, but he was one of the ones. But I mean, I'm really appreciate the value add that you do. And I think the other thing, you made a comment, and I think this is important, and this should be the case with anybody you deal with. Kad takes a very long-term approach, and a realtor who's worth their salt should. So you might be giving them advice now, and the deal might be 5 or 10 years down the road.
Sure.
We're trying to do the same thing with our financial planning practice, which is helping people understand that their home they're in right now might be perfect and ideal forever. But if you notice that there's some struggles that people are going to have due to mobility or cognitive issues in that, really, we have a stewardship responsibility to help a client think that through, and we couldn't do it without the right kind of supporting other professionals, a CPA, a realtor, an attorney, and that, and bringing the family in a lot of times to do this. So get good advice, listen to the advice. If you're uncomfortable with it, out of the mouth of 2 or more witnesses, let this stuff be established. And Aaron, why don't you wrap us up?
No, absolutely. This has been fantastic. And often the borrowed phrase that we say on the podcast, Kad, is seek wise counsel. And I think that's what this comes back around to. As always, we'd love to hear from you guys, your thoughts on this episode, this topic, at connect@yourretirementcoach.com. Kad, where can people get in touch with you?
The best way is going to be just shoot me an email.
Okay, yeah.
Kad at mendoza-realty.com.
Fantastic. So in a quick recap, listen, your home is going to be an expense. The investment side is up to you. We want you to seek wise counsel. We want you to make sure that instead of afterwards, hey, I remodeled the kitchen, what is this going to do? Seek those professionals that can help you walk through those big expenditures, like the pool, like the kitchen, like the bathroom. Everybody that retires pretty much.
2 things.
Yeah.
Get a new kitchen and a new master bath. I don't know why they do it, but
I feel like if we ever really wanted to meet the people that we needed to
I'm retiring. I'm going to need a new master bath, and I'm going to upgrade the kitchen.
Yeah. Rollover master baths and kitchen. Anybody else? Oh, you guys, hey, come over. So seriously, we want you to take those things into account beforehand. But to all of you that have been a part of our audience, you're coachable, and we appreciate that, and we want you to stay coachable. We hope you enjoyed today's show, but you may have questions for our coaches, and they can be emailed at connect@yourretirementcoach.com. If you know someone that needs to hear this episode, we encourage you to share it. As a reminder, the content of this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as advice. On behalf of our coaches, we want to thank you for listening and for being coachable.
Yeomans Consulting Group, a registered investment advisor YouTube channel based in Marietta, Georgia. We strive to provide comprehensive wealth management services for every stage of the journey. This platform is solely for informational purposes and is not offering advisory services or sales of securities. Investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Comments by viewers or recognitions are no guarantee of future investment outcomes and do not ensure that a viewer will experience a higher level of performance or results. Public comments posted on this site are not selected, amended, deleted, or sorted in any way. If applicable, certain editing of personal, identifiable information and misinformation may be deleted. The opinions expressed herein are as of the date of publication and are subject to revision due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass.